Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Nikhil Verma. I am a physical medicine and rehabilitation physician doing interventional spine and musculoskeletal health here in Columbus, Ohio. Um, I will be putting this on my YouTube channel. As you can see up on the screen there, my YouTube channel is Things I Didn't Learn in Med School. I do talk a lot about the topics that we don't really cover in med school, anywhere from what it's like for a job hunt, how physicians get paid, what reimbursement looks like, um, the pitfalls that I go through personally as I'm building my own private practice, um, and a lot of things like that. So if you do have interest in this video or some of those topics, encourage you to go check those out as well. And if there's topics that might interest you that I don't cover, then I'd be happy to look into it and see if I would cover it in this YouTube channel. My other social media handles are up there. NV Sports and Spine on Twitter, Dr. NV Sports and Spine. NV Sports _ Spine. Dr. NV Sports and Spine on Instagram. Then my practice, Essential Sports and Spine. And again, happy to answer any questions you guys might have. I don't know if it fits within your guys' schedule, but if you guys have electives and want to see what an interventional pain doctor does and learn some stuff about the interventional pain world and musculoskeletal health, I'd be happy to have you guys over there. So with all that said, I was reached out by your program director to discuss this topics. This is something that we don't learn in medicine. Everyone tries to give their best advice. And I think that's the biggest point is, I'm no expert in this. I just have read a lot. I ask a lot of questions. I go to a lot of seminars, conferences, and I kind of get linked up with as many people as I can to discuss these things. And as I continue to grow more knowledge and talk to these topics with more people, I feel like I get a better grasp. And again, I don't want anyone to take away that I'm the say all and be all of what we're about to discuss today, but I think it's helpful for people to start realizing what we're going through and what we should be going through, especially as physician reimbursement continuously declines over the next, years, especially with the risen inflation, and how we're getting more and more demands to work harder. And what I've noticed on the practice side of things is more and more people are asking for more and more of my money, not my money personally, my business money, and not giving a good return in value. So, all these things are important to start thinking about, especially if you are a student, a resident, a fellow, even if you're an early year attending. It might be worth your time to start looking into these things in more detail, so you can set yourself up for a more successful future financially, and hopefully you have better life satisfaction with that as well. So we'll get started here. Let's see what I'm doing here. Okay, great. So again, no real disclosures here. I do have referral links. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I encourage you guys to kind of make your own network and refer one another to different perks and reap those benefits amongst one another. Another thing I really want to know is, systems and habits are the key to financial success. I'm continuously learning. I'm always looking into these topics I'm discussing today. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at this from your perspective. Some of you might be very versed in financial literacy. Others might have no idea where to start. So hopefully it gives everyone some sort of value, no matter where you are. And honestly, some of you probably know more than me. I know I had a lot of friends in residency and fellowship that knew a lot more about finances than I did. And, I didn't take that discouragingly. I took that as an opportunity for me to grow and ask questions. So, all right. So the first thing, I should actually say this as well. This is a lecture that I gave in 2020 to a group of physical medicine rehabilitation scholars, which is kind of a unique way to teach residents and students. And it's a student/resident run organization. And there were 3 speakers that night, and I was one of them. I led off with this lecture. I've revised it over the years, so just keep that in mind. It's a work in progress. I'm always going to revise this and use this as my jumping off point. So anyways, I think one of the most important things to start off with is tracking where your money is going. And it doesn't have to be intensive. Just, spend 4 weeks, make an Excel sheet, or do the old pen and paper and just see where all your money's going. Um, Either if it's an automated payment or if it's a actual, going grocery shopping and you spend X amount of dollars. Just track that kind of stuff. So you have a ballpark figure of what you're spending each day, each week, each month, and that way you have a good idea of where you're spending your money and where you can start saving money, or did I really need to get that thing? You shouldn't really feel guilty about this. This is just trying to see where your baseline is and where you're at in the financial literacy world, and where you're at in spending money and how your money habits are. We'll talk more about money habits and the psychology of money, which is a fantastic book. But that's one of the most important things is, like, we might not even be aware of our own poor habits, or maybe even some of the good habits we have. So just keep that in mind. Again, so I recommend you writing this down physically, or using Excel or Google Sheets format, because this way you're actually typing in the numbers, and it has a little bit more of a conscious bias to it. You're going to actually look into it and identify with it a little bit more. In the future, after that, you can start using some of the automated softwares. I think that's a great idea. I have actually have mine down pretty well, that I don't even need to use those anymore, because I kind of know how much I'm spending month to month. But it's been several years since I've been doing this, so I kind of know what I'm spending month to month. And maybe you'll like that, or maybe other people really like to see month to month what they're spending exactly on. And that's, again, everyone's different. Everyone's going to have their own little ways they want to do this. So after doing this for a month, you can switch to the automated version and keep better track of it that way. Again, I've kind of stopped doing that, because I kind of know what my income is and where I'm spending my money. So, the next thing is, learning your own budget. And that might be different for everybody. Some of us are very growth minded, and we look at the long-term potential, and we want to save. Other people want to enjoy their life. They want to spend their money. They want to go on vacation. They want to go out to eat. And there's nothing wrong with any of this. I think a lot of the financial gurus will, a lot of them will say the same thing I'm saying, is like, don't feel guilty about where you want to spend your money. And that's kind of the newer age of the people. But in some of the late, or like past generations, they were like, why are you spending all this money? Why are you wasting all this money? And I don't know. I don't know if that's a generational thing, and maybe this generation will think the same thing of the younger generation. I don't know, but I think it's an important concept to think, is like, know what your budget is, and know where you're. And that's why tracking is so important, because you want to know where you're spending your money. I'll show you an example of the budget on the next slide. But here's a loose recommendation. Again, these are loose recommendations. Everyone's different, et cetera, et cetera. You want to spend about 30% of your budget on housing, and that includes like the bills that are involved with housing. About 20% into savings and retirement. 10% for car, and that includes gas payment, insurance, and maintenance. And again, I'll show you guys what this looks like next slide. So this is where Excel and Mint actually work really good. Mint's an app you can download on your phone, and you can connect to your bank accounts, and you can kind of see where you're spending your money. And you also have the option to type in dollar values when you spend cash. So another cool thing that it does is it will show you where what like categories you're spending money: health and fitness, or food, or entertainment, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something that's kind of cool, so you can kind of know where you're spending your money. All right, so I just talked about a sample budget, and here's an example. This is in a very extreme example. I do get that. I did it on purpose, showing it this way, of someone that affords $3,000 a month. Now, it's hard to compress that money into a rent and electricity at $900. I don't know of very many places that you can get that kind of rent, but this is where concepts of having a roommate might help, or if you're married and you have the house, the mortgage could be around this. And if your spouse also works, then that's an added benefit. But again, use this as a framework to build on, and not as a hard and fast rule. You can see I've commented a few other things: internet and cable streaming services, phone bills, groceries, dining out, car payments, student loan payments. If you're in public service loan forgiveness, that's something to think about. And other, pay as you go kind of things. Um, that's why this is kind of a flexible budget framework. Using money for transportation. When I did my residency in Brooklyn, New York, so a Metro card had to be budgeted to my, monthly expenses. Here's that 20% savings in retirement. I think that's one of the most important things, mainly because the power of compounding is so exponentially powerful. It's I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but you'll see that if you start investing early and putting even the $600 a month into a retirement account, and over the course of 30 years, how quickly you can become financially sound. You might not be ready to retire, but you can at least have a really big nest egg, and you won't have to worry too much about other things at that point. In some of the books I share later, we'll have this concept of why compounding is so important, when putting investments in early versus larger amounts later is the way to go. Even small amounts early will go a long way. Disability insurance is something we'll talk about a little bit as well today. And then, I threw in that $50 for incidental extra fund money, if you like to spoil yourself. So again, $3,000 a month. I don't know what the salaries are in residency, but I remember, this was about what I was getting my intern year. So hopefully you're getting a little bit more with that, with inflation going up, but I can't say it confidently. But if you look at these numbers, you can kind of say, yeah, this kind of seems reasonable. I can probably do something like this. But that's just something to keep in mind. So, again, I just kind of mentioned this. Hopefully you'll be making more than this. I didn't include everything: gym memberships, gifts, supplements, medications, donations. And the other thing is, don't be so hard on yourself that it matters right now. This can be fluid month to month. Especially if you know that, hey, I have a big month next month because I'm going on vacation. It's my girlfriend's birthday. We're going to go out to eat extra. Or I got to buy a gift. All these things are good. So you want to be conscientious about that and save your money the month in advance, or just knowing that, hey, I spent a lot of money this month. Next month, I'm not going to go out to dinner as much. And, we'll make some more homemade meals. So that's just a concept that how I kind of view it. That nothing should be hard and fast. Obviously, you're hoping that those fixed costs will be more structured. That would be rent, electricity, the car payments, the car insurance and maintenance, and then savings and retirement. But the point remains. So another thing is, what are you willing to make sacrifices on to make sure that you're going to be financially secure? For example, when I lived in Brooklyn, New York, I opted to live with two other people, 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. But it was plenty of spacious for us, and we had a good time together. They weren't in medicine, which was also helpful, but that allowed me to, spend more money on the gyms that I wanted to go to, and allowed money to do other things such as travel, or if there's a basketball game or football game I want to go to, I wouldn't feel so hard pressed for cash. But that's the thing, you want to figure out what you're willing to pay more for and what you're willing to make sacrifices on, to fit within your budget. And again, no right or wrong answer. Everyone is different, and everyone should have that right. So one of the big things I recommend to any resident, or even student that kind of comes along my way. And, I know students, you're not making cash right now, but it's something to keep in mind in the future. But residents, at least you're making a paycheck, and fellows, et cetera. And even, early stage career attendings. I have a lot of friends that haven't taken the financial literacy steps to try to put themselves in a good position. They just figured, once I make a bunch of money, then I'll figure it out. But again, as I talked about, the power of compounding is so important that it could really put the landscape of your rest of your career in a place where you're not working until you're 70 or 80 years old, unless you want to. So, so I recommend setting up a savings account. I have Chase Bank, so that's what I use. Everyone has their own bank. Maybe you have a local bank, that's great. And what you want to do is you want to put a little bit of savings in there. We know through COVID that a lot of people were able to work or they're working from home. It didn't really affect the medical field, obviously, but it made a challenge because people didn't have access to cash. And I'm not saying you want to have a big surplus of access of cash in your bank account. It's actually arguably not the best idea to do. You want to put more money in investments, but you want to have a good, 2 to 3 months. Some people say 6 months worth of living cash. So that's why it was important. We start with that budget that we talked about. And when you start there, you have X amount of dollars, give or take, that you spend in a month. Then you want to multiply that by two, three, up to six. So if if something happens, you get injured, or if you lose your job for whatever reason, or you're in between jobs, like in fellowship, you're waiting to start your career and you don't have an opportunity to make any money because of licensing and credentialing with insurance companies, et cetera, you're going to want some cash on hand. So that's why it's great to start early. It doesn't have to be a significant amount. I was literally just doing $30 a month, but I've been doing it for 6 years now. So, you can do the math there. And anytime I get a big lump of sum money, I would also help contribute to these savings accounts. Um, and then I have a high yield savings account. Um, I should take that back. So it started off at $30 a month, and it went up to $30 a week over the course of my career. But again, it was just to build up this emergency fund savings account. So I have about half of that money in a Chase bank account. So if I ever need quick access to cash, it's right there. And then I have a high yield savings account with Ally. This was a much bigger concept a few years ago when we had really good APYs, the return of values. Nowadays, just anyone's going to be fine. And you don't necessarily have to have this. It's not worth it to make an extra $30 in the whole year. The idea is just to have enough money there. The reason I chose two is Ally's pretty cool because you can actually allocate funds to do different things. Like this will be my travel fund, this will be my house fund, my retirement fund, or whatever. So that it makes these little buckets, and you can contribute certain percentages to each one. You do your research. I think that's the important thing, and make sure that they're insured, FDCI. I don't remember what it means off the top of my head, but it's going to insure your money to up to a certain amount. So. I think in the residency stage or even fellowship, it's just great to have $1,000 to $3,000 in each of these accounts. Again, with a couple months of expenses. Just keep that in mind. Again, everyone's different. I think it's important to be conscientious about this. I have a colleague who just finished his fellowship. Well, not just anymore. He finished his fellowship in January of this year, and he still hasn't started his job because he's waiting on credentialing with insurance companies. So, thankfully his wife is still working, but it's challenging to, make ends meet when you don't have that extra cash. And it's other thing. Don't be afraid to take these money out for vacations, gifts, emergencies, toys, all those things that you might want for yourself. I've gotten really big into golf this year, and I'm spending a lot of my extra cash on this golf. I'm knowing I'm going to be able to replenish that cash, but it's been fun, fun for me to have another side distraction outside of medicine. So, again, many ways to go about this. Use your judgment. Only you know what you need to do. Don't let anyone else persuade you. And I think what the whole purpose of this is for you to take the responsibility upon yourself to kind of know what you're doing and where you're spending your money and how you want to allocate your funds appropriately. So here's a nice little rule tip that I found. Say you get a bump and raise $3,000 a month at $3,100 a month for whatever reason. Maybe you're going from PGY 1 to PGY 2, whatever. You take that difference and 10% of it. So this will be, $10 in this case. You'll add that to your spending and fund money and take the rest and then go put it into the savings and retirements or loans, because those are the burdensome things that are going to carry on with you for a longer period of time. So it's better to pay those off if you can early, the loans especially. But again, investing in your retirement account early shows value, but I don't recommend starting heavily into retirement accounts until you have a savings account, just a little bit of money in a savings account that you can have quick access to. I do this for large checks. Anything over $100, I'll put that extra money into my, spending money, and then I don't, and then the rest goes. Right now, it's the rest been going to my loans. I want to pay those off as soon as possible. Um, you know, Even if your emergency fund covers 3 months of expenses, you can still do this. Let it grow over time. Anytime you need to make big purchases, you have enough cash to pay. That's another concept that's floating around recently. Is like if you're going to buy anything outside of a house and potentially a car at this stage, is make sure you have enough cash in the bank. You don't want to be putting $400, $500, um, you know, golf clubs on credit that you can't pay cash. Um, some of the books we talk about different psychology about this. Uh, Just Keep Buying is a great book I just read recently, and it talks about this concept is like if you have a purchase that's significant, make sure you put at least that amount into a retirement account towards your loans as well, because then you're thinking, do I really want to spend this? So you have to want to make sure that you really want something first. Um, so hence, I have not bought new golf clubs in the past couple of years because of this. So, but maybe I will sometime soon. Um, the key is to get these habits early. It'll be much easier to carry on these habits as you grow as an individual and your net worth grows and your network grows and your access to cash grows. It'll be very important to have all these concepts. Especially when you're, you know, in your career, you're going to have bonuses, you're going to have, um, you know, opportunities for partnerships and certain practices. So that's going to really give you a lot of leverage to your next echelon of cash. Different philosophies for different people. My recommendation is pay off your debt as soon as possible. That's if you're have credit card debts, especially. Also, if you have student loans, I know we kind of discussed the student loan things and student loan forgiveness, how that may or may not necessarily need to be so pressing, but it's something you should keep mind of and try to take care of. Um, my Thankfully, knock on wood, right now, I currently don't have any credit card debt. I still have a pretty fair amount of student loans. So I'm trying to pay that off as fast as possible, as I said. And it's automated. So I have an X amount that I'm required to pay each month for my loans. And I just went ahead and added an extra X amount a month just because I know I can live in those means still. But again, that's me. Everyone needs to decide what's the best for themselves. Some other tips, especially in your stage if in residency, you may want to look into disability insurance, and you want to make sure that it is disability insurance that is work specific. And the reason I say that is because if you get injured or you get sick and you're out for an amount of time, that this disability insurance money can be very valuable, especially as your value goes up, your time versus value goes up. And some disability insurance can have it as simple minor things, or it can be very serious. So it's definitely good financial practice. People say like, do I want to spend all this money in residency? I'm young, I'm healthy. I get that. I did it in my PGY3 year. I had a PGY4 program, and I went to fellowship. So I saw the value in it because I saw my friends getting hurt. I have an example here. My friend broke her wrist and had a concussion, and she was able to apply for disability insurance and it took her 4 weeks for that money to come in, but she was out for almost 2 months and she wasn't able to work. So, it was good for her to actually have some cash flow without being in too much trouble financially. Shop around. I think that's an important thing whenever you're doing disability insurance. White Coast Investor website has a bunch of affiliate links on there. I use Physicians Thrive. They just kind of reach out to me, and I got along well. The rep in Ohio, I don't know if she would be yours as well. She's very good and has been very helpful. If anyone's interested, I can get you guys linked up with her. They were also considering talking to me and adding me to like a panel to help spread their word, and they would sponsor some lunches and stuff. I don't know if that ever came to fruition, but if there is any disclosure, that might be one just to keep in mind, that if I do refer you, there might be some referral finding fee that I get, but I'm not 100% positive about that. I'll definitely look into it. um, before anyone gets in trouble. Um, the other thing is it's also important to set up your will and your estate, especially if you're married and have kids. This is uh, important to know what happens. Unfortunately, there's a lot of tragedy, and unfortunately, in the medical field, we have such a high, significant rate of burnout. I think it's important to take our mental health into serious consideration. Um, but we constantly hear about uh, physicians, especially young physicians, that have either been attacked by um, patients or have unfortunately committed suicide because of the stress. So I don't want to harp on it too much, but I think you guys are all intelligent individuals and you know this as a reality. So it's important to have these kind of things lined up so you don't have to put stress on your family members. Um, the all other thing you want to consider, if you're married or have kids, you might want to consider a life insurance policy. That depends on you. The good thing about both of these is you want to start early and spend the smallest amount of it early on. And as you continue to grow and get a bigger and bigger uh, bank account and investment accounts, then you can probably just cancel these because you'll have enough cash on the other side to cover any of those expenses. So it's not a lifelong thing for most people. It is for some, but you might not have to be lifelong for you. So, for example, I said I'll take my disability insurance until the age of 40 or 45, and I'll probably cancel it unless I become, super rich before that, which is not looking likely. But just to make sure I have enough money to cover those expenses if something were to happen to me, God forbid. So this, it's something we don't think about often, and it's something maybe you should take into consideration. And I know that these individuals can come off as very salesy, so that's why you want to work with someone that works well with you. Credit card tip: utilize the points and miles to travel, so you don't have to pay as much. That's something I did a lot. Got 1.5 times back on food purchases, and dining out was 3%. And then when you reuse those points, you got 1.2 times percent or times back. So it really helped when I was paying for flights during residency, able to go to some places. Um, Again, use this wisely. You don't want to build up a lot of credit card debt, but sometimes this happens. I use the Chase Sapphire Rewards, the preferred card. It's a high fee, like $425, but you really make up for it in the back end as long as you're using it intelligently. And some people say you only need one of these kind of cards. Some people want more. It's all up to you. I have one. I have a Chase Sapphire for the points, and then I also have a Delta Sky card too that helps for flights. So, but everyone's different. Again, the big thing is you just know what you're spending it on. I think that's one of the most important things. Some people want airline points. People want hotel perks. Some want cash back. It's all up to you. A colleague of mine, he loves vacationing, him and his wife, so they have the Marriott card. They'll go to 3 to 5 7-day vacations throughout the year, and all their hotels are paid for because they put everything on their Marriott card. So it's a nice perk to have if that's what you want. Um, and yeah, they get free hotel stays, free food at the hotels as well, and other perks that come with the membership too. So, and yeah, this is a big key: is pass these referral codes on to one another out there. I think it's great that you'll get bonuses and help each other out. All right, so here's just a handful of recommendations. This is kind of how I view it. Everyone's different, but again, this is how I view it, and this is what I recommend. I would say read at least one book on finance, investing, and money philosophies a year. I would actually say 1 to 3 would be on the low end. I would probably say one a quarter would be the best way to get around this. Listen to 1 to 2 podcasts or YouTube videos, like a deep dive a month. There's a lot of podcasts that come out every week, so you could really listen to that every week and really make up a lot of ground with that, or multiple if you're like me and like to listen to multiple podcasts. You can read 1 or 2 blog posts a week. I think that's good practice so you start getting your feet wet into these topics, and those can kind of dwindle down as you get a better grasp. There's a bunch of Facebook groups. White Coat Investor has one. There's a lot of other ones like Student Doctor Finances. These companies realize that we as physicians don't have a great grasp on this financial wellness, so it's important to have some sort of basis. And I think there's so many companies, so many people out there trying to help out and do the thing that wasn't given to them in the past. Here are a couple of books I recommend to start with, and this kind of changes over time, but I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. He kind of breaks it down into how I think people in my generation, at least, think about things. I'm, the borderline. Are you guys in the same generation I am? I don't know. And I know there's people that are younger than me watching this. I know people much older than me also watching this. So, again, I think he gives a lot of great tips on how to break things down, why compounding works, how to set a budget from month to month. He gives some tips and tricks. So it's a pretty good book, quick read. White Goat Investor 1 and 2 by James Dahle. He has a great podcast too. I listened to that for over a year. Started bouncing around a different podcast after that, but he has a lot of good tips, especially the White Goat Investor 1. It's just like a great starting off point to, if you don't know anything about financial literacy. And then The Physician Philosopher by Jimmy Turner. He talks a lot about life and philosophy and money habits as well. So he's a good follow. He also has a podcast that's pretty good. Actually, all three of these people have podcasts, so it's great to listen to those if you like. More books I recommend. We talked about The Psychology of Money. Morgan Housel does a fantastic job of kind of breaking down why people spend like they do and how we should be thinking about our money and kind of how we even look and view money out there. Just Keep Buying, and discussed that book too. It kind of breaks down like how investing should work, but it also talks about other things about the big purchases. It's a very pragmatic book. It's not a long, you don't have to sit there and read it cover to cover. You can break it down by chapter to chapter even. Money Master Game, that was one of the first books I read on financing back in the beginning of med school. I found a lot of value in it. Again, that's more about investing and how to think about money. The Truth About Money, The Richest Man in Babylon, Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was a book that really changed how I viewed cash flow. You're a Badass at Making Money, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill is a classic, Millionaire Next Door, Get a Financial Life, Personal Finance in Your 20s. There's tons of these out there. Again, if you find the philosophies that work well for you and follow those authors and for a while, and then you kind of grow and you expand and start seeing other ones. Other people I recommend following, Naval Ravikant. He doesn't talk too much about finances, but he kind of talks about life philosophy in general. Dave Ramsey, he's a very hard conservative of these kind of topics. He really says, pay off your debt, pay off your debt, pay off your debt, save your money, save your money. That's not the life that I choose to live. Again, I'm conscientious about where my budget is and how I'm spending my money. But everyone's different. Again, Ray Dalio talks a lot about business sector and financial markets. Boglehead Forum is a great place to start if you know absolutely nothing. Physician on Fire also has a book and also has it FIRE as a concept, financial independence, retire early. And then one that I came across recently is Money with Katie. She's a highly charismatic talker and just brings up really interesting points about the financial market and saving money and what we would think we want to do to make more money, and if we're giving ourselves more stress than is actually needed. And she covers all these topics. She actually has a great episode on the healthcare system. She recently got married, so she talks about her adventures going through her marriage and how much it cost. She talks to she brings on different guests as well, and sometimes I end up following those people as well. So it's a good resource. It's one I found very entertaining, not just for the educational value, but she's a very engaging speaker. The final point, biggest point, is you're not going to be rich tomorrow. You won't be rich next week. You won't be rich a year from now. But 10 years from now, if you can do these habits consistently over time, you will have a financially set point that you're going to be comfortable. And I think that's the big goal of any of this, is then you can start practicing medicine more on your own terms, and you won't feel so stressed about this overhanging fruit of, do I have enough money to pay these things off? And that's the point. Is like, you get to live your life that you choose to live, and I think that's the most important thing. And that's what Morgan Housel talks about, the psychology of money. So thanks everyone for paying attention and listening. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Um, pretty easily accessible on all these social media platforms. My email address is right there as well. If you want to discuss anything more personally, I'm happy to get on the phone with you. Again, I invite anyone that has any interest to rotate with me to come on through. We'll set up whatever paperwork we need to set up. And then the big thing is, if you found this kind of information useful, I recommend following my YouTube channel. You might find some of my other topics really useful for yourself as well. So thanks again, everyone, and you guys have a good day. Take care.